The riot ultimately is the behavior of the unheard. And, I got the way that I did about the riots and the police station being burnt down in Minnesota and the jokes about holding, marshmallows up to the flames of that burning police station. What is it that I feel that I haven't been heard about? What is it that I feel that people aren't listening to? Paul Ryan released an anti-poverty plan in 2014. He proposes that a variety of federal means-tested welfare programs be turned into a cash block grants in states that could be allowed to dole out the cash in order to exchange the recipients laying out a life contract for how they will increase the market incomes for an easy caseworker. As I explained the other day as it came out, this is a bad idea, unnecessarily and seriously misunderstands the nature of American poverty. There are two, the differences between the poverty related solutions have to do with the way that the two sides see poverty. The right wing view is that poverty is an individual phenomenon. On this view, people are in poverty because they are lazy, uneducated, ignorant, or otherwise inferior in some matter. If this theory were true, then it would follow that the impoverished people are basically the same people every year. And if that were true, we could wipe out poverty by helping that particular 15% of the population to figure things out and climb out of poverty. Thus, a program of heavily paternalistic life contracts to help this discrete underclass get things together might conceivably dramatically reduce poverty. Theory two, which is the only truth, there's no truth to the other one. The left wing view is that the poverty is a structural phenomenon. On this view, people are in poverty because they find themselves in holes in the economic system that deliver them inadequate income. Because individual lives are dynamic, people don't sit in those holes forever. One year they're in a low income hole, the next year they'll find a job or gotten a promotion and aren't anymore. But that hole that they were in last year doesn't go away. Others often inevitably find themselves in holes because it's a persistent defect in the economic structure. It follows that from this that impoverished people are not the same people every year. It follows further that the only way to reduce poverty is to go after the economic structure so as to reduce the number of low income individuals in it, which is true. Structural poverty is the only right answer. To figure out which theory is true, the easiest thing to do is to answer the question: are impoverished people the same people every year or different ones? The individual theory predicts that they are the same people, and further that they need paternalistic interventions such as to get their act together. The structural theory predicts that there are different people, and further that we need to alter the economic structure to make things better. All of the commentators linked above mentioned longitudinal studies show that impoverished people are not the same every year. The last SAP, the 3-year longitudinal study done by the census, had around one-third of Americans finding themselves in episodic poverty at some point in the 3 years, but just 3.5 finding themselves in episodic poverty through all of 3 years. The PSID study shows that 4 in 10 adults experience an entire year of poverty between the ages of 25 and 60. If you count kids, the number of people who experience at least 1 year of poverty rockets even higher, of course. Also, it deserves pointing out that nearly 45% of adults use a means-tested welfare program in their life. This presumably is a number of adults who would need to prostrate themselves before social workers at some point in their life to spell out some ridiculous life contract to get under Ryan's plan. Getting specific about structural holes. The revolving door of poverty is a slam dunk indicator that the structural theory of poverty is correct and the only correct answer. But we have to get even more specific by identifying where the structural holes are. There are many places to focus, but one easily indisputable is old age. First, consider child poverty. Children have much higher poverty rates than adults. Younger adults have a higher poverty rates than older children. Why is this? Two reasons. First, families with children and them have to get more income each year to stay above the poverty line than the families without them. But that market does not distribute incomes more money just because people have more children. Consequently, the mere act of adding a child to the family makes it more likely that the family will be in poverty. Second, adults have children when they are young workers, but young workers also make the least income. This too makes it more likely a child will be in poverty than an adult purely because of the way the economy is structured. Why do young children have higher poverty rates than older children? Because young children have young parents and old children have old parents. Old parents make more money than young children because they are deeper into the economic life cycle. That's why the graph looks the way that it does. Second, adult poverty rate by age. It's a common fact. It's common to describe 25 to 65 as prime workers, working age young adults. But look at how much poverty falls over those working years. Nearly 20% of 25-year-olds are in poverty, by less than 10% of 61-year-olds are. Why? Young workers make less money than old workers. Young workers are often taking care of children as well, while older workers generally don't. This is structural. This is one of the very blatant structural reasons why you are going to see some people swapping in and out of poverty over their lives, just like the longitudinal data shows. I could go on, but the point is clear. Poverty replicates itself in a very predictable structural ways. Since the problem is structural, a solution must be structural as well. This is not nearly as difficult a task as it may seem. For instance, in the case of structural poverty problems afflicting children and young families, it's very easily dealt with by using a child allowance program, which is commonly used throughout Europe. So here we go. You know, article after article after article showing a truth, and yet this perspective is not being heard. You know, what has persisted in the American psychosis, and an American abyss, is this belief that poverty is about individuals and everybody is individually responsible for their life, for their circumstances. But that's not true. There's a whole structure that, basically causes poverty in very predictable ways.